Hello, my name is Joe, and I just finished my final year at Ohio State, where I was studying finance and Spanish. And during this past year, I became really interested in deferred MBA programs where you apply prior to graduation. And if you're accepted, you work for 2 to 5 years and then you matriculate. So I like the idea of having more flexibility, more opportunity to take risk in my pre MBA career. And with that in mind, I began preparing for the GMAT in January of 2024. I had never studied for or taken the GMAT prior, so I was starting completely from scratch. And I took my first official mock on January 19th, scoring 595, which is 72nd percentile. And my breakdown was as follows: verbal, 86th, 98th percentile; quant, 74, 29th percentile; and data insights, 79, 79th percentile. During the test, I knew I was scoring poorly on quant, but I was still surprised by how badly I got cooked on that section. And for data insights, I felt that the majority of the questions I was missing was a result of really not understanding all of the content on the quant section. So after that mock, I knew I needed to take a deep dive into the quant section. I was looking for a test prep resource that was comprehensive, that would allow me to build knowledge from a fairly low level of understanding, and finally that I could work to at a relatively quick pace. So I did some surfing on Reddit and saw a lot of users raving about TTP, specifically as a tool to improve your quant score. And I started the 5-day free trial. And what initially stood out to me was TTP asked the sections you wanted to focus on, the level of expertise you wanted to develop, and how many hours a week you had to dedicate towards studying. And with that information, it built me a customizable study plan all the way out until the date of my exam. So I was very impressed with that tool. And then when I began working through the quant section, I really liked the structure of the lessons. There were these short readings that were immediately followed by practice problems. So I was introduced to a new concept and then applied that concept to a real problem. And for me, this was really helpful, just making sure I understood that new concept before I moved on to a new one. And as much as possible for GMAT preparation, it made the studying a little more engaging and fun. So after that 5-day free trial, I was sold on TTP and I bought the dedicated study 4 months of full access plan and got after it. So in addition to that customizable study schedule and the structure of the lessons, there were two other qualities that really made the difference in my preparation for the GMAT. The first was detailed explanations for questions. For each question, Target Test Prep offered both a video and a written explanation for the correct answer. But even if I was confused after looking at those resources, I could reach out to the live helpline and they always got back to me within a few hours. So throughout the entire process, there was never a question that I felt totally stumped on. Secondly, a review of content is built into the course. So as you progress from one module to the next, you're frequently asked to complete these review quizzes that are built off of questions you've missed on previous sections. And this was very helpful because it forced me to correct my mistakes and it also kept earlier content fresh on my mind. So all in all, I completed TTP in mid-March. It took me about 6 weeks. And going back, I definitely recommend giving yourself a little bit more time if you're able to. I felt a little bit rushed and around 60 or 70% of the way through the course began to struggle with burnout. But with that being said, through the course, I developed a really solid foundational understanding of the content on the quant section. For data insights, specifically the data sufficiency questions, I felt that I was no longer stumped with the math. I knew how to approach these problems. And finally, with verbal, even though I didn't use TTP as much for this section, I felt significantly more confident with the practice problems. I felt that I understood the justification for the correct answer instead of just going with my best guess. So in mid-March, I took my first official GMAT FE, where I scored a 685 total, increasing 25 percentile points to 97. And then again, my breakdown was verbal 89. This was an increase of 2 percentile points to 100. Quant 81. This was an increase of 42 percentile points to 71. And finally, data insights 82, an increase of 15 percentile points to 94 percentile. So overall, I'm very happy with this improvement. I don't think it would have been possible without TTP and the customizable study schedule, the structure of the lessons, the detailed answer explanations, as well as the built-in review content were all extremely helpful for me. So if you're considering taking the GMAT, looking for a test preparation company, I highly recommend TTP. This was the only resource that I used to increase my score by 90 points. And I think this would be incredibly beneficial for others seeking similar improvement.